You know that feeling, right? When you hear a story and it just clicks. It feels so true, even if the facts don't quite line up. Well, today we're going to dive into a hidden mental shortcut that makes us do exactly that. And trust me, you'll be surprised how often it's steering you in the wrong direction. It all starts with something super familiar. You hear a story about a person, a place, an event, and it just sounds completely plausible. It makes perfect sense. And what really hooks us usually is one specific, vivid detail. It just jumps out, and our brain immediately latches onto it like it's the most important piece of the entire puzzle. So, based on that one powerful little detail, we leap to what feels like a totally inescapable conclusion. It just seems like the only possible answer, right? But here's the trap. When we're laser focused on that one detail, we can completely miss something absolutely critical: the bigger picture. We ignore all the background data, the actual statistics that give that one detail its real meaning. Well, this mental blind spot actually has a name. It's called base rate neglect. It's our brain's natural tendency to just toss out the general statistical info. That's the base rate, and instead zoom in on those specific, flashy details. And the reason this happens is actually pretty simple. Our brains are fundamentally wired for stories, not for spreadsheets. A really compelling story is almost always going to feel more convincing to our gut than a bunch of cold, hard data, even if that data is telling us the real truth. So this sets up a constant battle inside our heads. On one side, you've got these vivid, juicy details that our intuition just can't resist. And on the other side, you've got the abstract statistical base rates that our brain would much rather ignore. It's a total showdown between what feels right and what is actually statistically true. Okay, so let's get real. How does this bias actually pop up and trip us in our daily lives? Let's take a look at a few of the most common mental traps. A classic one is how we judge people. So, you meet someone who perfectly fits a stereotype. Let's say they're quiet and love books, and your brain immediately thinks, oh, a librarian. The description is so convincing that we forget to ask the really important question: are there more librarians in the world, or are there, say, 100 times more salespeople? We totally confuse how much they look like the stereotype with how likely they actually are to be it. This bias also completely warps how we think about risk, especially when it comes to health. I mean, imagine you get a positive test result for a really, really rare disease. It's terrifying, right? Instant panic. But without knowing the base rates, like how rare is the disease actually and how often does the test give a false positive, that one scary result is almost meaningless. We let that alarming detail completely steamroll the statistical reality. And oh man, does it sabotage our decisions. Just think about shopping online. You could see a product with hundreds of glowing 5-star ratings, but that one vivid, detailed 1-star horror story, that's the one that sticks in your head and makes you hesitate. We let one powerful story outweigh a mountain of data, basically treating a rare exception like it's the rule. So we've seen how this thing works. But so what? What are the real consequences? Why is ignoring these background numbers actually so dangerous? Well, the consequences are pretty significant. Our sense of probability gets all twisted up. We overreact to false alarms. We make poor decisions, big and small. And on a personal level, it just amplifies our fears, leaving us with a totally distorted view of the world. So here's the most important point. Without the context that the base rate gives you, our ability to judge reality is just broken. We completely lose our sense of proportion and scale. But here's the good news. We are not powerless here. We can actually learn to fight back against this bias. There are a few simple but really powerful tools we can add to our mental toolkit. So here's a quick 4-step process for you. First, just make it a habit. Always ask for the base rate. Just train yourself to ask, okay, but overall, how common is this? Second, you have to actively separate the description from the probability. Remind yourself that a good story doesn't make something more likely. Third, try to find the numbers before you hear the story. And finally, just slow down. That gut feeling, that quick intuitive jump, that's the one you need to second guess. Ultimately, the big takeaway is this. True clarity really comes when we ground all those vivid impressions and compelling stories in the simple, and yeah, sometimes boring, reality of how often things actually happen. So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. In your own life, in the decisions you're making, the things you believe, what crucial base rates might you be ignoring right now?